Maybe I'm stupid, but I never think that way because there is no way back. Put me in charge of finance and administration in Germany as 28-year-old.
Wow.
Not having a clue what I did.
You really started from
There
scratch.
was nothing. When I came, there was a lease contract. That's it. And I got the hotel room, and then you go from there. It was the biggest opening H&M ever had. I think between 5,000 and 7,000 people in line the opening day, waiting out for 4 or 5 hours to get into the store. And it went on having a line for, I think, half a year. Every morning, everything becomes unimportant, and you realize what's important in life, and then that's a life lesson you have to bring with you.
What do you think success has cost you?
I think when I was younger, I was too driven. I was very, very driven. In my head said, of course, no, I don't care about money, and I don't need a Porsche to be happy. But in my heart, I still thought so.
Right. Do you regret it?
No, never. I think appreciating life, friends, family, that is the most... if you don't do that, you pay the ultimate price. I think that is happiness. Nothing else.
Cold nights, bright lights, fast life, no rewinds. From the block to the top, we was built for the climb. Yeah. Had to get it, had to pay that price. Every loss made me think twice. Keep my head low, keep my eyes on the prize. Move smart, never roll them dice. Yeah. If you know, then you know. We don't talk too loud. Every step on the floor, got the whole thing mapped out. New York, state of mind.
Welcome, Jonas. Thank you so much for coming to the room. I've been wanting to have this conversation with you for a very long time.
Thank you, John. Nice to be here.
I appreciate you you making it out. I'll just give a little bit of a brief overview because you've had an incredible career, almost 40 years at H&M, building the company. I think you've probably opened up almost 25 countries.
I've been there while opening up 20 countries at least and helping out.
Right. Japan, Korea, the US, maybe Austria. You've definitely seen a lot from the late 80s all the way through, the mid 2020s. I've had the pleasure of being your friend for about 20 years.
Thank you for having me.
One of the questions that everybody always asks me is, how the heck did we ever meet in the first place? And I was thinking about it. I mean, it was probably, I want to say it was 08, maybe 09.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe 09. I had just left banking, started a sports agency. Yeah. Our first client was Dwayne Wade from the Miami Heat. I'm here in Japan, getting on a flight to go from Tokyo to Seoul to do some sort of pitch. Yeah. Our flight is delayed on the ground, but once we've already boarded, you're sitting next to me, and I think we're like the only two guys with laptops open, stuck for a few hours trying to work. And you're not the littlest guy. I'm not either. So I remember that. And we just started talking here and there while we were working on some presentation.
I remember commuting every second week to Seoul for 3 years and meeting you and presenting. We had just opened very successfully here in Tokyo. And then showing you what H&M was.
You mentioned eventually that you were the CFO of Japan, and maybe even at some point wearing your CEO hat, but it seems like you were doing a lot, both Japan and Korea. And there was some issue, I don't remember what it was, but there was some issue that came up in Korea, and me, being the crazy person I am, said, I can probably help you with that while we were on the plane.
Yep.
And I used to carry this bag because I would go, between China, Korea, Japan, and the US, traveling quite a bit, almost every other month. So I pulled out my Ziploc bag of phones, called this guy, Nick, who's the managing partner at his law firm. We set up a meeting, I'm pretty sure while we were on a plane, the plane when we landed in Seoul. We set up a meeting for breakfast maybe the next day in Seoul, probably at Myeongdong. I don't remember.
It was.
Right. And then, I think things sort of went well, and then we didn't really sort of stay in touch. There was no reason to. I was living in New York at the time. Fast forward, maybe months, and we bump into each other one late night on Halloween in Tokyo. I sort of remember that, not really. And then the rest is sort of history. It was quite organic and not forced, and just fond memories as I think back on how all of that kind of unfolded, and almost seems unbelievable. But
it's been a nice ride, and I especially appreciate when you took care of my daughter when she was visiting and working over summer in New York. You helped her. You and your family were supporting her, and I really liked that.
Yeah, no, she's amazing, and has grown up to be, an incredible young woman. I can't believe she was in her teens at the time. So, lots of memories we can share. I wanted to shift gears a little bit, and maybe go back to kind of what made you, and the kind of early years, right? I mean, everyone's got their own story.
Yeah.
I grew up in the South Bronx, kind of New York kid, maybe a slightly tougher environment or whatever. And I know what made me resilient. I'm not as familiar with Sweden, and given what you've done, I'd love to just try to figure out why and how and kind of what makes you tick. So tell me a little bit about kind of the young Jonas and what allowed you to be kind of the dreamer that you are.
Yeah. I mean, I come from, I wouldn't compare Bronx with anything in Sweden. Bronx in the 80s and 90s were rough.
Right.
I came from what was sort of the similar in Malmö, a very working class environment, actually. I had a single mother. She got pregnant when she was in her 20s, living alone, brought up me alone, and roaming the suburbs at 5-6 years old, running around.
Wow.
And then my grandparents, who were living outside Malmö, took me and brought us to a bit more decent area. And there I sort of got going and started doing a lot of sports during my youth.
Right.
And I think I was always decent in school, or good at school, and made it through school with rather good marks.
Right.
And then mostly being sport. That was my life when I was young.
And that's something I kind of knew, but it's another, again, as I was just preparing for this conversation, I realized we have much more in common than I knew, because, I had a similar situation. I mean, my stepdad, who has always been involved, but, for a while, mom was, a single mom raising us. And I think that forces you to grow up a little bit faster and maybe just handle things that other kids may not have to handle at that same time. And sports was my outlet, right? So just to do something, I mean, I loved it. Thank God I loved it, but, was decent at it. So, and you did wrestling. I mean, you did quite competitively, right?
Yeah, I was in the national team for a while.
That's just, I mean, just in the national team. I mean, this is not a small thing.
No, but Sweden was quite good at the time. We were probably the best Western country in the world. But
wow.
So it was interesting.
Wow.
But we had no chance against the Russians and the Bulgarians.
We all see just your most recent success at H&M, which is, you had this C-suite title, right? And then that's it. But obviously over the 35 to 40 years, you've done lots of different things within that. But before that, you didn't just go straight into H&M, right?
Yeah. No, I was, during my university studies, I happened to, or during my military service, I broke my leg skiing. So I had to break up my studies to go back and do the last half year. And in combination with that, I managed to get into IBM's traineeship by you did tests. I was not studying informatics, but you did tests, and I managed to get in. So I did that, and then instead of going into the IT business, which I sometimes regret I didn't, maybe would have been good. I went back to school because I wanted to work in management, international management. So I studied international business, and I did that, and then I ran my own small consulting company.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of what you're doing is figuring out what's the best way to take a company and grow it.
Yeah.
And how to do that in a manageable way without growing too fast, without running out of money.
I mean, I've always been right-brained, the more creative side. But being a business person and being a financial person, you're supposed to be left-brained. But I've always actually been right-brained. So my goal has always been to develop things and enjoy doing that. So I started coming in. I think I was hired because I spoke German and I was knowing IT and systems. And I always try to systemize the way you do whatever business I'm in, but it's been retail 99%. And developing the way of working, using IT not as a way to make things faster. IT is not moving faster, doing exactly the same thing as you did yesterday.
Right.
And I think that's in all different ways of working. So I was in H&M trying to develop things all the time, how we can do things smarter than yesterday.
You're working with different countries and cultures and designing a system that just works, let's say, for Sweden or maybe other countries in Europe is entirely different. And if I understand, a lot of it is centralized.
Yeah.
So it's almost more important to sort of get it right so that it just works.
Yeah.
Is that...
Yeah, I think it's a lot of different areas. But if we start with centralization, I think a company like H&M at least, you work with a very centralized, decentralized company where you're having a lot of things doing it the central way. But when you decentralize, you have to let go. You have to let the decentralized units do their work. And then it's about getting technology to sum it up. But you skip the middle management. I mean, of course, there are middle managers, but you try to avoid having these standard ways you do something from top down or bottom up, but it always gets stuck in the middle.
Right.
So if you can shortcut that and do things smart, you win a lot and you can grow a lot and you can use the creativity both from different areas, different countries, different regions, and still have benefits. So you need to, as you say, construct a system, way of working, management that can do a lot of good things for a company or an organization and still use the creativity and the smartness out in the organization. And that works for every organization, I think.
Right. Would you find yourself adapting the design because you learned something, let's say, from Austria that you could use in Germany or from a different country? Would you just constantly kind of refresh the system at least so that it was always optimal, or would you try to not tinker with that too much?
No, I think it's different. In the short run, when you have a good idea, you leave it, you keep the core idea, and then you adopt the marketing and sales maybe, but not too much. The product, I think you keep. If you don't develop long-term, though, you become a Nokia, a fantastic phone that no one wants anymore, or a Kodak camera that now they want them again, but for 30 years, no one wanted them.
Right.
So you have to develop the product, but that you do centrally, and of course the way of acting locally in the market, whether it's in a country or in globally or whatever it is. I think that's super interesting and important.
Right. So one other thing, and just help me with context. You joined H&M in '88.
Yeah.
And there were probably a few hundred stores, mostly in Europe?
Exactly. 6 countries in Northern Europe, that was it.
That's it.
We grew from that. And I was lucky we didn't have any traineeship, but I worked half a year as local controller and then half a year at the buying office. And then they, for some strange notion, put me in charge of finance and administration in Germany as 28-year-old.
Wow.
Not having a clue what I did.
So this is like the mid-90s.
Yeah,
at this point, right?
No, this is 88.
Oh, already by then.
Yeah,
okay,
89,
wow.
89 I came to Germany.
Wow.
With an extraordinary experience of 1 year in the company and studied finance at university, but never in real life.
Well, I guess the train. I mean, I don't know what that was like. That must have been quite scary.
I think I've always been someone who just go with the flow, and if someone appoints you, I assume they know what they're doing. So I hope to be able to do it, and you never work alone. I think the idea is to get there and get people to work with you. Right. And luckily enough, I've always been able to get good people around me. So they do the heavy lifting. I think that's the core. I mean, I came there as 28-year-olds. I had manager for my departments who were much older than I was. And just by, I remember having a situation where we had problems. We were also in charge of the supply chain development of IT. They were sitting in our office, so sort of supported them. That was an area I knew at least. And I had an IT manager who was much older than I was, in a consultancy company, of course, very experienced. And they had a big fight. And I just sat down with them and tried to get them to talk for half an hour and explaining that we had to work together and get the goal. The whole group was expecting a system that worked, etc. And then I walked out of the room and thought, shit, I screwed it up thoroughly. But both came to me afterwards and say, oh, so good, that finally said something really hard to them. And I just asked them, well, how do we solve this? Right. And they did it themselves. And after that, both of them were best of friends. Yeah, maybe not, but close.
Close enough.
Close.
Good enough.
Close. It worked. So just sitting down, taking out the best of people, I think that's all.
But that's also, I think, a real skill that requires you to understand people and maybe, I don't know if it's empathizing or just seeing through the crap, if you will, to get to the heart of it and maybe say what other people won't or point something out that might be a little bit uncomfortable. And I get the sense over the kind of arc of your career that you've had to do that over and over again, right?
Of course.
So you're opening stores every week. I mean, not you, but globally. And how do you manage all that? You're closing. So, I mean, that's 10x just from I mean, at a minimum, 10x there. So I think you're bound to come across things where that ability to like read the rooms and people and understand is even internally, right?
Yeah. You get used to trying to listen. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you speak, at least. And you just try to read the room. And I think also, I've always been interested in management. I studied a lot about Daniel Goleman, about neurology and how the brain works, how to teach others, and how to learn yourself. And that's always been an interest. So it's always been a hobby to deal with people. And I think by doing that, you learn all these techniques a little bit, and you can develop yourself as well. And you know that the big power lies in getting people to work together.
So where do things go from there? Because I know you got like 28 other countries after Germany, and that's 10 years into it.
I mean, while working in Germany, I also commuted to Austria for 5 years, I think.
Wow.
Starting up the business there as CFO and chairman, and not chairman, CFO, and then working, sort of building the business from scratch. It was very easy delegation of authority at that time. It was our CFO had that, the group CFO had that as his project to open Austria, and we had our HR manager became country manager in Austria. So he just said to me, Jonas, now you have to open up and make sure everything works, or I cut your throat off. And our HR manager sort of nervously laughed because that was not HR stuff. And he said, what are you laughing at? I cut your throat up if it doesn't work with the sales. So now that was delegation. And now let's eat. And that was clearly, that was the first visit in Austria. But he was a very nice guy in the end. I mean, very clear, very, very direct, but a nice guy.
And was Austria the first country that you sort of open/help open?
Yeah. I mean, we had a growth in Germany that was, we had 23 stores when I came, and we went to 400 when I left, I think, roughly, or 300 maybe. But From scratch, Austria, definitely, because there was nothing when we started.
So just being able to kind of go in, figure out everything, and execute over and over and over again is quite difficult, I would imagine. I mean, just challenging, right? Each time, but I guess you get better and better, and it takes a certain type of maybe a broader skill set.
Yeah, I think that's the difference with the dual management model that H&M has. When people ask me about the secrets of how could H&M grow and become the world's biggest retailer at the time we were, and also how could we have a finance department ranked number 1 by Forbes in the world, actually, over GE and all the other big ones at that time about. And I think it was a lot about this dual management where you have the right brain management doing marketing sales, having 52% of the management, and 49% is the structured left-brained CFO. And that way, as CFO, you're responsible for logistics, security, of course, planning and sales on the one side, but also the accounting, finance, etc. All these square things. And by doing that, you become wide. You have to learn to think over the whole company, what's happening, legal stuff.
Right.
So doing that, you think, and you also know, I can't do this. I have to use other people. So the first thing I was told by the rough CFO when I was opening Austria was, don't try to do it yourself. We're a big company. We use our money frugal, you can say that?
Yeah, frugal.
Yeah, frugal. And by that, we have a lot of reserves, so we can use it. If you need help, get help. If you need a lawyer, get a lawyer. Not just because you're lazy, but you have to know your limits. So use people in a good way, and positive way, and cooperative way, but also use help and get help. And that way, you're not afraid. You know, you can always go in. And if you can't manage yourself, you just get help. So it's not a scary situation what you go into if you feel empowered.
Well, it's interesting because you're basically operating in some ways when you're in a new country, kind of like a startup with support, but it's not fully set up. So you've got to go in and figure out that whole ground game, and it's always different. So that part feels a little bit more startup-y and less, okay.
But I was working, my wife became ill, so I moved back to Malmö, and I worked in Denmark for a few years.
Okay.
And from Denmark, we opened up or supported Poland. We didn't open up Poland, but we supported Poland, and I supported US when they need reorganization, etc.
Right. Yeah, that's around the time that I went back to grad school, and I think maybe right around 9/11, which, is, I had been back, I think, for 2 years in grad school, but you were there around then as well.
Yeah, I was working in New York on next to the Empire State Building. We had our head office, and we were standing discussing when they came running in and saying, a plane has hit the Twin Towers, and we thought the little helicopter has sort of scrapped it. But so we continued our meeting, and then came the second flight, and then chaos broke loose.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. I was at Columbia Law School and business school at the same time, and that was my first year of business school. I had moved to Jersey City, which was just cheaper in terms of rent, right across the Hudson River from the Twin Towers, and I could see it getting onto the PATH train, every day, and it was fine. A beautiful day. Get on the train. Turns out it was one of, or maybe the last PATH train that they let go into the World Trade Center. You know this story, but
I know.
As I was thinking about it, we get into the World Trade Center, maybe 8 minutes later, nobody's waiting on the platform to go back. Open the doors, alarm bells are ringing. Go up to the sort of first concourse, it's empty, even all the kiosks, long escalator up, and then emergency response had not even arrived yet. So there was one police officer telling us to go out of what was the north side of the building, which is where the first plane hit.
Yeah.
And we could see the hole, had no idea what was going on, just really, I would say, intense, scary, didn't know if there was like a terrorist bomb, it felt like maybe, I don't know if something had blown up. We just didn't really know. But the idea was to just go up to Chambers Street, because Cortlandt Street is that the World Trade Center stop. So skip there, get on the train, and it goes from pure chaos on the street level to nobody having a clue what was happening, underground.
Yep.
And it wasn't until we got up closer to Columbia, maybe 96th Street, that we started to hear.
Scary day. I remember we continued with our meetings even after it happened. We didn't know what to do. And then we had a bomb threat to the store, which was under the office. And they just called and said, there is a bomb in the store. And we didn't really know what to do. And we said, what happens now? We need to evacuate. And a little bit later, there was another call and saying, they just said, tick, 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 boom. And the bomb goes off and hang up.
Wow.
That's when we emptied the office. Left were only me and the security manager.
Wow.
He had his son-in-law in one of the towers, and I had my wife in emergency care in Sweden. So we stayed close to. The phones were down, so the only way to communicate were through mails. It was a very, very, very scary couple of days in a hotel room with CNN going.
Right.
Night and day, because probably you were, as well as we were, convinced that this is only the beginning. Why would you take such preparations and crash 4 planes? And there were 6 and another 6 or 8 planes out of control where they had no communication with. And later we thought they will do something with gas or water or something. So there will come more. But luckily enough, not going on. I remember flying back from New York, maybe 5 days later, first flight, and totally chaos. Airports were crowded, and finally they got the flight who actually was leaving. But it was so chaotic that it was only half full and absolutely no security.
Wow.
Nothing. They didn't ask us, they didn't check, there were no, only tickets.
Well, around the same time as we're talking about, you mentioned your wife being ill in Sweden at the time, and I don't know if you want to talk about that, but that just given your crazy schedule and your daughter was around 8 at the time.
Yeah, 7, 8. And it
kind of changed everything.
Of course. Now we have had a 20 years long relationship that was very close to perfect, and never any fights, big fights, never any breakups, and had a beautiful life. We shared life and shared our all duties, what we had, in a very nice way and communicative. And she became ill and passed away the year a bit in September, so she passed away in May, June, the year after. And I, of course, I was working with in the US, but also with the management group for the H&M, with the CEO and CFO, and had to localize that down in south of Sweden. So I moved to Copenhagen, where you can commute daily.
I imagine at that time, you just don't even have time to really grieve. You're working and you got to take care of your daughter. Like, how do you deal with that?
No, it is, everything becomes unimportant, and you realize what's important in life, and then that's a life lesson you have to bring with you. But you just have to cope. If all kind of thoughts go through your head over months, of course, and I was lucky in 2 ways. One, of course, that I had my daughter, who gave me a reason to be strong and to survive and to go on living and taking care of things. And then I had a fantastic employer who gave me time off and do whatever I wanted for as long as I wanted. So I was off for half a year. And they just told me, we would love you to come back. I think it could be good for you, but don't feel forced. Stay home, full salary, everything, as long as you need. No questions asked. And that was super support. And that created a loyalty to the company as well, of course, because if you feel taken care of, you do the same back. So that was good. And then I had a fantastic daughter that I needed to take care of. And at the certain point, after a couple of weeks, there was so much to deal with and mistreatment and people not acting as they should. And you have to decide, do I want to go backwards with my life and trying to get right and get things, money back or whatever? Or do I just drop everything and go forward? Try to be, if not optimistic, at least seeing the possibilities. So that was this easy choice because it was not for me, it was for the family. So for her, I said, if I'm going to be a father, I have to be in a good mood. I have to be able to smile. I have to be able to laugh. So not forgetting, but letting go. Letting go of all the bad things or bad feelings and trying to go forward and see opportunities instead. And you don't do that. You have to grieve. And I was commuting to Copenhagen, which is a 45-minute drive one way.
Right.
So those 1.5 hours every day was a very good time to reflect on things and feel sorry about my daughters, feeling sorry about her family and myself.
No way to put that in perspective. I think it just, to say that it's incredible also doesn't mean anything, I guess, right? Nobody wants to go through that, but I whatever those, I mean, you've had some real hardships even before that, and not to put them in perspective, but those things were more where your life was in danger, and we can talk about some of those things like being stuck, collapsed in a cave or having a cave collapse on top of you for 10 hours, which, all of those things are frightening, but it's all you.
It's easier because you fight for survival and you get out and you're fine.
Right.
It's a clear black and white. If it's black, you're not there anymore. If it's white, because I managed to get rather unharmed out of these different situations. And it's also probably been a way of dealing with hardship. And in a more playful way, when I think I was 9 or 10 or something, I learned sailing. You learn sailing by getting one of these very small boats and just go out on the sea. And we were a group of kids going out, no life vest, no nothing, out on the deep sea, halfway to Denmark. Oh, the sun is going down. And we went back in the middle of the ferries and we weren't close of having an accident. But life in the 60s, 70s were different from today.
Of course, right.
You just went out there.
Right.
And did things. And you were having parents that were busy.
Of course.
I got a stepdad when I was a bit over 10, 11, 12.
Right.
A good role model for all my life. But even before and during that, in those days, they just let their kids play, whatever they did.
Right.
Out biking in the middle of the city, running around in night, whatever. Not night, but evenings. And Sweden is a dark country in the winter.
Right. Well, it's dark country. It's like 3-4 hours of daylight. Some months.
Exactly.
No, that's. I can relate a little bit because even where I grew up, by all accounts, I mean, in the Bronx, it was not safe. But I don't think I ever felt like it was unsafe.
No.
I knew where not to go, and I knew where the community. We would sort of police each other, right? The aunts and uncles and different people would be sitting on the stoop, and we could play well into the night, 10, 11 o'clock, whatever it was, and nothing was going to happen right there. Don't go 2 blocks in any direction. That's fine, but it was safe and comfortable, and the parents were working, I mean, 3-4 jobs easily. You know, my mom, my stepdad, my dad, everybody was always working. When I see the photo of the these just massive boulders.
Yeah.
Were you just playing around in a cave?
We were playing around in a small. It wasn't a huge cave, but still. Then of course the roof couldn't have fallen in either. So, but it was a small cave down in outside the city where I was, and it was, I think, February something. Had to take our jackets off to get in, very small, into a cave, and when we're in there, the roof fell in, and it was.
How old were you then?
11, 12. Something.
So you've always been a troublemaker.
Yeah,
always looking for high risk situations to get into.
I mean, those days, kids always look for adventure. You seek out the adventure. If you go into, at those days we ran into construction sites and we're running on the roofs and jumping and probably been there, done it.
Yep.
And there is a cave. We have to explore it. So we went in. Very stupid. I wouldn't, for God's sake, never tell my kids to do it. But there we were, and it was totally dangerous, and it was on television all the way down to all over Europe, and live they were sending, and they got my parents then, but didn't tell them the whole truth because they were thinking about these big boulders. The only way they were to have it to lift,
to fall on top of
so
you.
they would have tipped it over my legs, so I would have been legless today if they would have done it. They sort of, if they lift it, they will fall down on me.
Right.
But they tried it anyway, so I got out. So no harm done. So I was a celebrity at school for a few days for being an reckless idiot. But
so you weren't a celebrity, and sorry to bring this up, but I would have thought you flying a plane before you could, go to the store by yourself would have made you more.
No, I wasn't.
Or is that just a
no?
I heard something about you in fighter jets. I don't know if I got it confused or if you were flying a Cessna or what.
No, I didn't fly. That was probably me being a bit uncareful with the words. No, but my grandfather was a fighter pilot, so he was
in Sweden.
In Sweden, and he was one of the special team who did exchange with other countries. So he's been out flying with Germans and Poles and Russians and so on, all and changing experience when he was young. He has a life story worth a show of its own. And but anyway, so I was with him, and that's where I said. But I never flew by myself. That was later in life when me and a few friends said, let's get a license maybe. And a third friend of ours said, yeah, but I have a license. I can teach you. So he taught us one day, and the next day we flew.
Wow.
He did the radio, but we actually did everything else. Start, flying, landing ourselves. Okay. And that was fun.
I mean, that's a little daredevil-ish.
But he was sitting next with a...
Still,
I think he was the daredevil, not I.
I have 2 younger brothers, as you know. And one of them, who's definitely not a risk taker, is getting his license, or was getting his license, and it sounds like it was fun, but just a lot. The takeoff and the landing, and I've seen some video. That's no small feat. I mean,
it's a lot. True.
Yeah.
So, but fun. Having this, my grandfather, and I spent, as my mother was a single mother, she was going to school in the evening and working in day, so I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. So I was brought up in that environment. So it was maybe not that scary.
My dad's father was served in World War II and was not a pilot. Just infantry men. But him being black, served with an all-black troop, and only after Eisenhower said, "Hey, look, we really need some mixed troops at this point. We need some help," and he volunteered, had to take the lowest rank to go into those groups. So, and was discharged at that lowest rank. And maybe 50 years later, they kind of called him back in and said, "Look, we made a mistake." But I recall these just outrageous stories. I mean, all true, I'm sure. but capturing German troops or by himself, and I'm sure he had some.
He had some stories. I mean, now Sweden, luckily enough, was not in the war. Cowardly or lucky, I don't know, but we were not. And he was a young man who at 15 was sold by his father to the military at 15, because you got equivalents of $10 and a suit if you joined. And his father came, took the $10 and the suits and left him. So he became a military, but was very gifted and played tennis and horseback riding. And he trained the horse that went to the Olympics, because then comes a high officer and ride it in the Olympics. But anyway, so he was a good tennis player, and but the horse stepped on his hand. So he became what we in Sweden call a wreck, like from the crown wreck, they call it, that you were hurt serving the crown, the government.
Right.
So he was at 20 maybe thrown out of the cavalry where he was, and he tried to apply for the army and for the something else, and nothing worked. But he was very gifted, so he had a friend who called him and said, okay, what's his name was, you have to try this new thing. There's a new area in the military that no one sort of know about. It's called the Air Force. Yeah, but I'm here. Yeah, but they don't have your record. So he joined the Air Force instead. He can't be a cavalryman, he can't be an army man, so he could be a pilot.
Wow.
And he did. So then after 10 years, his record caught up with him, and similar to your father or grandfather, he was not allowed to become an officer. So he had to be a maximum, what do they call them, the low officer. So he was the only sort of sergeant that was a pilot and doing exchange with other countries, because he was so good.
Wow.
But he wasn't allowed to.
Wow. So I see a little bit maybe where you got some of your adventure.
Yeah. I think it was
taking
there.
from.
And going out and flying with the Poles, and they always had 2 schnapps for breakfast and 2 schnapps for lunch, and then out flying. And then he came to Russia, and they didn't have 2 schnapps. They had two of these for lunch and for breakfast. And then they went out flying. In the evening, they drank. He was a storyteller as well, so I don't know if his...
Well, I would have loved to get grandfathers together. Really...
that would have been nice.
I just, I really regret not having recorded or just written down a lot of those stories. And my grandmother, who had a fantastic memory, they would sort of sit next to each other and fill in the gaps, but they were both quite sharp.
I spent a lot of time with him when he was very old, it was probably my age, but he retired and moved to the same city where I was living, or was living at the time. So I was listening to his stories, and he had sort of an Alzheimer's, so he told the same story every day. Forgot it, so I heard it many times.
Right.
And my grandmother was screaming at him, and but yeah, okay.
Yes,
it was great.
Wow, that's awesome. There's a question I've been meaning to ask you for a while. It's 2007-ish. Now you're 20 years in at H&M, all Europe. You've only opened up one country, Austria, kind of small, but important, right? Relative to...
Not that small, but important.
But then all of a sudden, Japan. It's the second largest economy in the world. I first came to Japan in 93 and, spent a few years. And I have to say, just being at Panasonic, it was one of, not the most difficult place that I've ever had to operate in. Even, you certainly didn't speak the language in the beginning, which is challenging at best. Did you decide that?
No, I remember I as we talked about before, after my wife passed, I sort of went back to Copenhagen, and from Copenhagen I could work with US, I could work with Poland and Denmark, of course. And the head office, since I commuted to Sweden a lot. After a few years of that and feeling okay, I sort of signaled I'm ready to do something else if anything pops up. And I was supporting a bit when we opened up in China, but more from home. Right. And then I got, all of a sudden, out of the blue, came the question, do you want to move to Japan? And having done my thesis 20 years earlier about Japanese management, but without coming here, I said, of course, yes. No second thought, just go for it. And wow. And there we were. And I first thought, should I ask my daughter? But she was 14 at the time, and I don't think a 14-year-old can make that decision. Sorry. So we just went for it.
Wow. Do you regret it?
No, never. It took a toll. I had a relationship at the time, and for different reasons, she was supposed to come with me, but privately she couldn't. So we were doing a distant relationship for a while, but it didn't work out in the long run. But that's how it was. No, I didn't regret it. I wanted to do something else.
And did you have infrastructure already in place that you could just sort of walk into and manage it? Or were you really, I mean, my memory is a little bit like you came in and you were literally setting up the company and the bank account. I mean, you really started from scratch.
There was nothing. There was a lease contract. So when I came, there was a lease contract. That's it. And I got the hotel room, and then you go from there. And I got very good help from a guy who was. I got very good help from a guy who had been living here for many years, who has been CEO for IKEA. Oh, wow. And built up IKEA from scratch here. They tried once in the 70s or 80s, and then they came back 2005, I think. So he was part of our board and did a lot of mentoring, Japanese mentoring. So doing that and getting help, and you know, you have a name of a lawyer, a name of an auditor, a name of someone who can help you with brokerage, and from there you go. You just try it out, but with the help of a big organization, you have the means. You can do what you need to do. Right. You just do your checklist and start ticking them off.
Right. Well, one thing, and I don't know how much you can talk about this, but I think not only was Japan the second largest economy in the world at the time, it's a quite difficult to navigate market, not just because of language or culture, but I think whether it's, you know, getting the right real estate, getting the right ad agency to put up billboards where you want, or rent the right space. And so a lot of companies tend to work, whether it's Disney or McDonald's or Starbucks, they'll partner with a local trading company or basically license it out with heavy sort of management or you know, some sort of overlap, but essentially make sure that, you know, they're real local operators. Yeah. My understanding is that IKEA and H&M more or less you did it on your own. Yeah. Without, is that?
Yeah, we did it 100% of our own, and it's sort of a control thing. I think the family behind H&M, who is still the majority owner, very nice family, but they want to control the business. They want to own the brand, own the brand image, so they don't take any risks by using other people. Because if you're an established company, you know what to do, and you do it your way. Right. And they didn't want that. So they have always been in control of the management. And there we have the resources to do that. So even if I come here and was alone for the beginning, I know that I could use the phone and I can speak to the head of marketing, I can speak to the head of the main lawyer, etc. So I can get help to get contacts through Sweden. Or I had a very good mentor, as I mentioned, who also knew all these companies, because he's been heading a lot of companies here, but also the launch of IKEA. So he knew what to do. Who do you talk to? And he helped us and gave us advice, which we partly listened to, partly not, which maybe was wrong sometimes and right sometimes. But that you have your unique product, you leave that alone. But as I said before, you change your marketing, the way of communication to the local language, not language, but also
expectations.
Exactly. What IKEA did, which was brilliant, they couldn't show their furniture in the normal way you do it in Europe, because the Japanese apartments are normally smaller, especially in Tokyo. So what they did, they took 20-foot containers, which was about the normal size of a very small Japanese apartment, and cut off the sides of that and decorated it with IKEA furniture and put them all over Tokyo and let people just walk by. And they saw it works in the local environment. So you have to adopt your product to the environment where you're in. And that's very intelligent. And we tried to do that in some ways with H&M as well.
Right. I don't know many companies outside of H&M and IKEA that have really independently come in to own and operate and be successful in Japan. I think it's no small feat. So, okay, so you come in 2007, it's a year later. I know Ginza opened up. It was a huge success, and I've heard anywhere between 6,000 to 8,000 people, and literally miles, several kilometers long line, in Ginza for the opening day.
Yeah, it was crazy.
What was that like for you? Right? I mean,
it's. I mean, H&M has opened up. I mean, when we opened up in New York a couple of years earlier, the Americans told H&M that, no, this is New York. You don't understand. People don't stand in line. They don't stand in line for a retail store that actually is not even exclusive. And what happened, it was long lines, super long lines, also in New York, chaos, television show, everything. So we knew a bit what was we were expecting. And I mean, the Japanese are used to line up. So Japanese people are a bit used to standing in line. So it was very natural. And we did a long campaign, like starting to build the brand almost a year in advance online and sort of influencing people. It was before the influencers, but you did it different ways to get an awareness, the fashionistas of Tokyo. So they're just feeding them slightly and building it. So when it was still a surprise for us, of course. We opened up a relatively small stores and no escalators, and it was the biggest opening H&M ever had. I think between 5,000 and 7,000 people in line the opening day, 3K line, and waiting out for 4 or 5 hours to get into the store. And it went on having a line for, I think, half a year, every morning. Seriously, we had a record high turnover, even if it's a relatively small H&M store. So it was amazing. It was fantastic. And I don't think they've had any bigger opening after that, even if the store is 3 times as big and it's in Fifth Avenue or in Singapore or whatever it is. This is the 2 biggest opening were the 2 small stores we opened up in Tokyo.
And it was
Harajuku and Ginza. Ginza. Wow. And it was the event of the year here because Tokyo is fashion-driven city. And TV stations rented the restaurant across the street for 24 hours and sent live all day. And there were helicopters and hundreds of policemen supporting the line. And it was almost 40 degrees outside, so we had watering service, giving out water bottles all day long. And so no, it was quite amazing.
Well, I'm sure when you raised your hand for that task, you didn't think it was going to be like that.
I didn't raise my hand for Japan even. I just raised my hand for when something is coming, I'm interested. But definitely not this. So it was total chaos. But I mean, we were working behind the scenes, of course. We had the CEO of the group there, our local CEO. She took care of the official parts. The rest of us were behind the lines, driving, carrying clothes, doing human chains of sending clothes from different floors in the stockroom. And we had a store where total chaos for months.
Shortly after the opening, maybe for a half a year or a year, I heard, upwards of 8,000 people a day visiting that store, which is, and like you said, people were willing to wait in line. And
there were lines for hours, for weeks. And I don't know the exact numbers of people anymore, but there were record. We sold more men clothes, I think, even with 2 stores, or was it maybe 4, than they did in Sweden with 140 stores.
That's incredible.
Men's. But still, people didn't believe their eyes when they saw it,
No, that's just. It's a great success story, and obviously you were doing something right at the right time. And I realize it's obviously it's a team effort, as you said, but to execute it almost flawlessly. And we've seen many examples where it's just not executed well, and I think they almost need to do like a Harvard case study on what that was like, right? Because I'm sure you had to, if you had done everything the way maybe they would do locally, I don't think you would have gotten that, right? Because no one else was doing that. Like clearly you were sort of getting the best of both worlds of what you could bring and how they told you to do it.
I think we did actually, and we did it in a way that not been done. Even if, as I said before, we opened up big stores in Singapore or New York, they didn't make the numbers even if it was 3 times as big. So we took the best out of Japanese, European and American management and tried to fit all the parts together and had specialists doing sort of. And of course, this is a short period of time.
Right.
You have to continue delivering month after month.
Well,
and it's been there. We were not as successful for different reasons that I don't want to go into. But it is, as you said, you have to build a machine for that to produce.
One thing I feel like is sort of a double-edged sword with Japan is, if you get it right, it's amazing. And you have the wind behind you and it can really push. And if you don't, it's over before it starts. But I think if you don't truly capture a deeper sort of essence, it's just a fad, and it just kind of there's a huge bang, and you can build that up. You might even be able to produce it. You see it a lot with music groups, and where there's just heavy promotion and TV advertising, and to the point where you just believe, okay, that's the cool whatever. But then eventually it dies, and the next one comes. So I think
I think it's different. Europe is, when you build something, it lasts longer. In US, it's more faster. Things grow up faster, dies faster. And here, as you say, it's even, if you say better or worse, it goes faster and it dies faster.
Right. And then how did you, and not to dwell on that, but it's still fascinating to me because, you built that up, and then, growing, I'm sure it wasn't like Ginza every time. And were there any sort of like growing pains or things that you realized? You don't see that in Japan, where it's almost like it looks like a different beast altogether.
Yeah.
What was that like? Sort of growing it and then managing people and expectations to kind of meet the local need, but not overdo it.
I think any company in Japan, it's 90% of the work is managing head office back home, if it's in US or Europe.
Okay.
And because here you're so into the daily work, and you of course need to listen to and see what's local, what's not local, how do you do it. But it's a bit black and white. You tell the staff that we don't want it to do it all the way to Japanese way of doing things, and then they stop caring at all. So you have to teach them to do it in the middle way, and that was hard. But much tougher was to get Sweden to understand, yes, we sold fantastically the first 1-2 stores, but it can't be that times 3 just because we opened 3 times as big store. And that's where it went wrong a bit. And to get this, you have to be very strong to push your way when you open up locally, especially in Japan. I think everywhere, but especially in Japan. Every country thinks they're different. When you open up in US, they say, no, you don't understand. This is US.
Right.
It's not Europe. You open up in Eastern Europe, they say, this is Eastern Europe. It's very different. But it isn't really. It's very much the same everywhere. When you have a strong, if it's IKEA, if it's H&M, or if it's Zara, I think it's pretty much the same business. But Japan is slightly more localized than other countries. So you have to be listening and really be careful what you do and how you do it. But I think that's the whole, coming, as I said before, from a small country, being in a company that goes local. You localize, centralize, and localize. You learn to listen to the people and seeing and adopting after what works. And you also know that the best people are the people around you who can help you. You have to work together. And then they will help you building a system where you know your core from home, but you also know the locals through your people. And that way you can get it to work.
So it's been almost 20 years for me, maybe a little bit longer at this point. In business school, there was the former CEO of Federated, which I think was Macy's, maybe Bloomingdale's, I forget. But he was a professor of this retail class. And we would have these 3-hour-long weekly sessions, case studies, always something to do with retail. Without fail, everything was just assortment, assortment, assortment. Like, did you have the right thing and the right color and the right size? And that's it, right? Like, it wasn't the lighting, it wasn't the layout. I mean, those things sort of matter. And I was thinking how hard that must have been in Japan, because there might be a more, just like a slightly different sense of like, we'll never wear yellow, or, you know, maybe that works in the US, things like that. And if you're centralized but decentralized, was that a challenge? Or
Yes, definitely. It's a challenge. In the beginning, it's okay, because as I said before, you have your core, you present that in a good way to the locals, and they will buy that and they will accept it. But then down the line, there is definitely things that you need to do localizing, and there you have a fight with your 90% workers with the head office to understand that size 32 isn't kids here. It used to be the normal size of a Japanese woman. I think they have grown the last 20 years, but 32 was a normal size for a normal, not a very tiny woman. In Europe, we were criticized of promoting too thin fashion. What do you call it? You would call it something, but
we call it, so we would call it the European size. You know, I'm, as you know, I'm Puerto Rican, got some thick legs and butt. I tried to put on those H&M jeans, and it was like I couldn't get them on. I think it was the European sizing. You
have US sizing, European sizing, and Asian sizing. And here it was extreme, but we were heavily criticized at the time in Europe, especially in Sweden. It was also very politically wrong to promote thin models. But here people were thin, but it was sort of, you can't have size 32. It's like size 0 or even less. It was not okay. But if people want to buy it, but no one looks like that. And that was a fight we had. And similar, a lot of other similar fights. So, but that's, I think, is normal business. There's a cheesy saying, retail is detail. And as you said before, you build up. I think your teacher was perfectly correct, or professor. It is assortment. It is, if you can get a right assortment, that and then promote. Today it's of course promotion. How do you sort of, what is it? You're not selling fashion, you're selling personality or a lifestyle. And all that changes over the years. But the product, it has to be right. And after that, also retail is detail is actually correct. You have to have all the things. You have to have the lighting. You have to have the refillment. You have to have service at the right degree for the right customer, and all that. So it's a lot of small things that makes the picture.
You came in no Japanese. It's a foreign country way of doing things. You have a daughter in high school. It just sort of feels like mission impossible. Like it'd be one thing to come in now and sort of parachute in as the CEO. It's been up and running for 20 years. But like at that time, just what was that like? I mean, I couldn't imagine having to juggle all of that as a single dad, and getting more towards that, right? Like the business side is what it is, but you weren't, 25 running around by yourself. It feels kind of like Mission Impossible, but then I think about you getting out of the cave, falling off of a cliff, all of these crazy things. Like, how did you deal with that?
I think you just go with the flow. I mean, you have to be open to the not planned, and just sit down every morning. And I mean, you learn in business school and you learn in management culture that you have to plan your day. The two things you need to do to become a good manager is prioritization and communication. And we have spoken about that before. And I think those are the only things. You need to sit every morning, go through what is important today, and then do it regularly. And just try to stick to the plan relatively. And if you do that, nothing is impossible as long as you get supported by a good company and have a good family. And I mean, I was alone with my daughter, but she's fantastic. And we got the help from the company to do what we needed to do to have the surrounding. Right. It's much harder to be a single mother with 2 kids in New York or Malmö.
I agree.
Where you have no means. I got all the help in the world. So people have asked me, how could you do this as a single father? I got the help. They are alone, struggling. It's much tougher.
I 10,000% agree. I think it still is hard, but especially, and I would say unfortunately, too many women around the world are doing this all the time with no extra help or resources. So that I fully understand. I mean, was there a point at which you felt like, man, maybe I just bit off a little more than I could chew? I mean, because it's I understand the mentality, but was there any moment, or were you just like, I'm all in, and I'm gonna just make it work?
Yeah, I think maybe I'm stupid, but I never think that way, because there is no way back, really. I never back off.
Right.
I might fail, and that I have done more than once. But there is, I mean, going backwards, it doesn't even come to my mind. So you do it, and you just, as I said, stop and figure out, okay, that didn't work. What do we do now? There's always ways to get things to work if you're backed in a decent way as well. Yeah. And of course, there have been privately things where I really had to stop and reconsider how to do things. But work-wise, it's been easy.
Yeah, there's 2 things you said, which, I think prioritization, communication you mentioned, and I think one other is just, there's always something that is urgent, but not necessarily important, and being able to tell the difference, because if you're not careful, it's so easy to just get distracted by putting out fires.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, the day has come and gone, and, delegating. So I think that's...
this is the prioritization, where you sit down. I mean, you have and I've been very careful with doing that, both with myself and with my colleagues or people working with me, that they have to the company has to set clear goals that you can change and moderate and evolve during time. So they're not stuck, because then you become a problem more than a solution. But company or department or wherever you have to have clear goals. You have to have clear goals, and the person has to have clear goals. And see if their short-term goals and long-term goals fit together with the company's or department's long-term goals. When you have that, you know what to do all the time. You don't need to stop and figure out, because you know where to go. And then you do it regularly. You go through it with them, and you have with yourself daily or at least weekly, also looking at seeing, what do I have to do now to get to the next level? And you just do it systematically. And then the big crash never comes, because you will always catch it in time to see and be able to recalibrate and do something else, or get help, or do whatever needs to be done. That works work-wise. Very good.
Well, the failure point you mentioned, I think, is one that I also agree with wholeheartedly, because I totally agree that, part of it is belief in yourself, but knowing that you will fail at times, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And you might fail visibly, publicly, and that's also okay. And you learn from it, and you're not afraid of it, and you have the confidence to know that it's going to be okay eventually. So you don't worry about what might go wrong. Okay, that went wrong, and you fix it. And I think it's something that I see a lot less of in Japan, not because people are maybe afraid to take risk. I just don't think it's allowed here. That in Japan, visible public failure is something that sticks with you. So there's a lot of, I find, especially at the more senior levels, this navigation away from anything that might go there, whereas you're, at the peak of your career, like fully ready, willing, and able to take that on, which is a huge lesson. And some of that is maybe you, some of that's the organization knowing, that they'll support that. But that's just something that I think is interesting.
But I think it's in H&M, definitely it used to be, and I hope still is, that you should take risk. I mean,
right.
Only dead fish swim with the stream or float with the stream. And it's also, you have to take risks to be able to do something new. If you don't take chances, you will do the same thing over and over again. So it's your job to do things wrong once in a while, but learn, change, like fall forward and get up and continue.
Well, and there's also, I think, my experience more certainly on the legal side, but more so on the finance side is, and I have this conversation a lot. People think that if you come from a finance or banking background, that you're just this maverick, crazy risk taker. And I think it's almost the opposite. Most people in finance are super risk averse. And if anything, we want to understand what the risk is, what we can do to mitigate that risk, how we can structure around it. So we're pushing the envelope, but within some sort of controlled framework that makes sense. And so you put a lot of thought into what can you do to push the envelope? How can you create a little bit of a safety net? And maybe there's some buffer where, you're taking some risk, but it isn't the case that you're not gambling, right? No. And I think being in a controller position, a CFO position, but then also trying to push the envelope, you're also,
I think that's,
it's calculated, right? Like it's risk adjusted return that you're looking at, not just, I hope it works.
No, and I mentioned before the dual management style that is what's very typical for H&M during my first years. And where you have the left brain and the right brain communicating and working together and create, where you have the calculating who calculate the risk and calculate the needs and calculate whatever, all the boring stuff. And you have the wild personality that creates and can be open.
Right.
And when they work together, you get the perfect combination. And you get this personality that don't really exist, where you have the wild ideas and you're able to do these amazing commercials that H&M did, amazing projects that they've done over the years with collaborations and models and fashion shows. But you have also the calculation of knowing we have to put this money in, what does it do, what does it bring us, how can we work with it. But if you only calculate, you become the boring static company that a controller would create. Something that just risk mitigation all the time.
Right.
And that doesn't move.
Yeah.
So you have to have both sides of the brain working together.
Right.
And doing that, you do crazy stuff, but you do it in a calculated risk.
Right.
Or calculated opportunities.
Right.
And that will make it work. And I think that's a fantastic mix that can work.
Well, and it's hard, right? Because I think people develop either skills or they generally become more and more risk averse as they go on, and they learn too much, and they're sort of like forced to think inside of a certain box, and it's hard to take all that experience in, but still approach it in a more positive or kind of less risk-averse way.
But it's like we said, I think it's an organizational challenge, because in a discussion, the left brain person always win over the right brain person, more or less. Not always, but looking from outside in a board meeting. Someone who can calculate and write it in squares and describe it will sort of 9 times out of 10 win a discussion with a more feeling-oriented person. I think this looks good.
Right.
So automatically, as you say, the square personality will take over in a company.
Right.
So you have to be very strong as an owner to have the guts.
And kind of counterbalance that.
Yeah,
right.
counterbalance. And that's why in H&M it was 51 on the creative side to 49. Because then there was an even discussion.
Right. Well, you don't want controllers running the company, because then it just becomes.
Exactly.
No, that's kind of amazing. And I know, so you just shifting gears a little bit. So you spent 5 years more or less in Japan?
Yeah, more or less.
More or less. And then you went back to open up new countries.
Yeah,
you moved back to Sweden, or?
Went back to Sweden, and I was sort of together with running, controlling, we had a head of controlling, and I was supporting him in the management part, coaching and supporting the CFOs around the world. And then more and more doing expansion when there came new markets and new business ideas.
Right. So that's H&M Group, which sits above H&M, COS, and other stories, et cetera,
There is
globally.
about 10 to 15 brands.
Wow.
How you define it.
Wow.
And 70 countries. We started with 6. Now I think it's around 70 countries.
I put a fair amount of thought into, just the last almost 20 years. And I was just remembering some crazy stories. One of them, we were working with Cristiano Ronaldo when he was with Real Madrid. Yeah. I had never been to a Champions League game. And on one of the projects we were working with him, there was a chance to go to Madrid. I don't think I had shared much more than that. We met in Madrid. It turns out a friend who was heading that project was quite close to him and the family personally. And I don't know that I shared with you that we would be sitting inside his family's box.
I must have been after Japan in Europe, so around 2012.
Yeah,
11,
something like that. Because his son was sitting around in the back, who was still quite young, and his brother. And,
exactly.
He scored, which is crazy. Yeah. I remember that was the first kind of professional game I had been to where nobody got up during the game.
Yeah.
To go to the bathroom, to go buy it, like not once.
Champions League, it was a big thing.
Super, super focused. Yeah. They were piping in the sound. It was incredible, and so just being there with him was crazy. And then we went to the Spanish restaurant. Yep. Maybe Nadal, Gasol, and was Ronaldo a part owner?
Ronaldo was a part owner,
and that was phenomenal.
Yeah,
just sort of one of those surreal moments that we share.
Yep. We have a couple of them.
Yeah, another one. I'll never forget this one, just because. It's a personal connection. But in March of 2012, you were in New York.
Yeah.
At the Gansevoort Hotel, and we were meeting for brunch. Fat Joe, who's one of the biggest rappers, also from the South Bronx, comes out of that hotel, and we start talking for 15 minutes, and nobody understands why. I'm with my daughter at the time, who was just maybe 3 or 4 years old, and it turns out that day was the day he launched the All the Way Up video. I think it was March 26th. You obviously knew who he was. We're all kind of sitting there talking to him, and we had just, tying this all back to Japan, AK-69, who is, without a doubt the #1 rap artist, kind of the Jay-Z of Japan, helped me help Fat Joe in Japan for 2 days, and he just rolled out the red carpet for Fat Joe, and I think that was the first time he had been back in Japan for a long time, maybe 15 years.
Now, there was two side stories to that. One was that in New York, like 2 days later, I was sitting in a restaurant down in Soho, and there came a open convertible blasting that song
all the way up,
the way up.
Yeah.
Going through very, very slowly.
Yeah.
And everyone was up and looking. I said, it's Fat Joe. And it was, I don't know who was in the car, but it was his song. It was sort of a promotion.
It
was super loud.
In
a convertible going through Soho back and forth. And then a few years later, or a year later in Stockholm, I had a company event, and Fat Joe was playing in a club, in a nightclub downtown. I called you, and I got the contact to him, and we went there, and I sort of got. You helped me get tickets to.
He was performing.
He was performing, and
that's right.
And I mean, I was decently of age compared to my colleagues who were sort of mid-20, and I said, "Let's go a rap concert." And I'll sort of you helped me, so I got in, and we were in contact with him, and he wanted to have a beer afterwards.
Yeah,
and they said, "What the heck? How did you know that?"
Yeah,
and thanks to you.
No, well, so that's kind of a crazy story, and the kind of Japan connection, I guess, is to the video.
Yeah.
So Joe was nice enough to say, look, thank you to AK for helping me in Japan. He should be in the video.
Yeah.
So he actually invited him to Queens, where they were filming inside of a club. Obviously, I was there, and you know, he was in not only the club scene, but also they went to a heliport.
Yeah.
In New Jersey. I remember it was freezing, and AK was in there as well. And, you know, and then what's kind of more crazy about that is I thought, you know, there should be an Asia remix to the song. Like, why not? And he was like, great, just do it. So I asked him, and he was like, go for it. So we ended up inviting, you know, obviously AK-69 would sort of like anchor it, but I brought Jay Park, and then I think AK reached out to Titanium in Thailand, Sona One, who's in Singapore, maybe Joe Flizzo, and they all did, you know, their verses, and we got it done, and it's up, you know, all in their own local language. But you were a big part of all of that, and you know, something I remember. And then another one that comes to mind that ties back to Malmo is, you know, after COVID sort of died down, I was at a basketball game, a Brooklyn Nets game. And because we had, you know, been working with all the NBA teams, I was able to sit courtside. Couldn't afford those tickets, but I was sitting courtside, and Zlatan was there with his family. I had never met him, but we end up sitting next to each other at the Crown Club.
Yeah.
And you know, there was one moment where we were standing next to each other, and I said hello like everybody else, but I mentioned Malmo.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me like, Malmo? And I said, yeah, I have a really good friend who's from Malmo. I've been there. I've seen your house on the corner and the park across the street. And we must have spoken for maybe 15, 20 minutes. Was the nicest, huge guy, you know, just a nice guy.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where, you know, there's just our connection that I wouldn't say made that happen, but it just, you know, were it not for you, that wouldn't have happened. So kind of these crazy moments. Yeah.
No, his house is famous in Malmö, Zlatan's house. But I actually was at the party there already before Zlatan moved in.
Oh, really?
So I've been there. Yeah, I don't know if I told you.
No.
I was dating the owner of that house, sister to his wife. So I was there at the dinner. I was there several times, but at the dinner, and he presented his neighbor. His name was, let's call him Eric. And he said, Eric here is a neighbor of mine. He's married a Swedish stewardess, and he's living in the house next to us. okay, I put you next to him at the dinner, and said, really nice. Yeah, okay. So we're sitting talking, and he sort of asked me questions about politics, and we spoke about American politics, about the old days when this was before Trump, when you actually couldn't do stuff, and talked about different elections and what happened and so on, and he asked my opinion about George W. Bush, and I said, yeah, I'm not my favorite. I don't think he did a good choice of choosing his cabinet, because it's a lot of old friends. Even Reagan, who was a conservative, chose the best in the field, but not so good. Yeah, okay, said, and we continued to speak, very nice and very friendly. And after they left, and I was helping clearing the tables, etc., with my friends, he asked, yeah, what did you think of Eric? And I said, yeah, a really nice guy. But what does he do, actually? Now he's a close advisor to George Bush.
Wow, okay.
So he was in the top 4 private advisors.
Wow.
So I really fucked up.
Yeah, you
sorry
gotta
for the
be careful on that.
Sorry about the language.
That's French, that's not English.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but hopefully I made my point that it wasn't personal.
I'm
really
sure you
stupid.
have come across all kinds of, I've heard all the big names in fashion and celebrities that H&M has worked with, from Beckham to Fergie, Black Eyed Peas to Naomi Campbell, and the list seems to go on and on.
Yeah, they were very brave at the time, and Jörgen Andersson, who was head of marketing, I think at the time, he made us do the collaborations. First, it was before his time. We did the biggest photo models in the world, Cindy Crawfords and Claudia Schiffer, who through the company I almost had a date with, but that's a different story. But it was set up, but it was broken off. Approval from my wife. No, but they did the Karl Lagerfeld and all the biggest name of fashion, Versace, and that was amazing. And there is a lot of stories behind the scenes of Madonna's specialness, if we call it that.
Right,
She's
right.
a bit unique. But Karl Lagerfeld was cool. He went on. He produced the whole. He made the clothes. He did arrange the shooting and the pictures and the models, everything, and talking all the time as he did. He was between the takes. He was also saying a lot of very good, smart things. So a famous director who was, I think it was Stackabo, Johan Renck, who does a lot of films still today, who said, "Oh, Mr. Karl Lagerfeld, that was brilliant. Can you please repeat that while the movie is going, or while the film is going?" And he just looked at me. "Are you stupid? I'm Karl Lagerfeld. I never repeat myself." Then he cut off.
You got to listen. Got to get it the first time.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
You have to be awake.
Wow.
Yeah, funny. But there is a lot of stories about.
No, I'm sure. I mean, it's obviously we're talking about 40 years of experience, and I wonder what comes to mind when you think about working across all these different countries, and I would say slightly different roles, from finance and obviously IT and controlling and planning, and so as you look back over the last few decades of having worked across all these different countries and different roles, is there anything that you feel like is an unwritten rule across these different cultures or roles that you've now figured out, or kind of the secret formula that you been able to distill?
No, I don't have any secret formula. I think listening to people, staying true to your company. I think if you are representing a company or a brand or a football club or whatever it is, you have to stay true to its soul and do it your way, but also stay true to yourself. And I think keeping the values of a company, I think you will have different kind of personalities. I spoke about left brain and right brain, but you also have more technical people and you have more creative people and you have more different personality, outspoken and more quiet, or whatever you are. But you have to share values.
Right.
That's, I think, is the core. If you try to work with people who have different values than you have, it's very hard. It goes into a relationship, but it goes into a company as well. And you can be different, but you have to have similar values.
Right.
And if you share those and you do communicate clearly, I think there is very important to be able to communicate clearly and to listen. And when I've been traveling or been working abroad, I've been studying international business and had very good teachers who teach you to appreciate the differences in countries, and knowing that the Japanese manager is one way, Swedish manager is different. Danish is very different from Swedish. We're bordering countries, it's a couple of miles away, but the mentality is very different. Mm-hmm. German is a different way, and Americans, as you know. So just knowing that and knowing the personality, the way of working, the way of looking at things are different, and appreciating that and putting it together in a good way. But you share the values and then you're fine.
Right.
I think that's very important.
No, that makes sense. I remember my first kind of big job after college was Panasonic in Japan.
Yeah.
And not many non-Japanese at that time. And there was a big, I wouldn't say cult-like, because but certainly larger than life figure in Konosuke Matsushita, who was the founder, and a lot of management domestically and abroad would just think, like, what would he have done? And that was hard because, they were the number one consumer electronics company in the world. It's big, it was 400 subsidiaries, I think at the time, a couple 100,000 people. But that proved to be hard to grow and innovate and adapt, because obviously times were changing and we're just sort of taking what worked here. And it's something I think about a lot at this point in my life. But what do you think success has cost you?
I think when I was younger, I was too driven. I was very, very driven. It probably comes, as you mentioned before, we have a similar background. You're also a very driven person. To prove myself for something, coming from a single mother, not very affluent, but she had brains and her family is smart, and maybe my father. You have to prove yourself, and that was very driven. So in the beginning, up till I was 40, I think I needed to prove myself, and I was very hard to myself.
And was that proving yourself to yourself or to other people who may have doubted you?
Yeah. No, I never. I was lucky. I was good in sports when I was young, so I wasn't down. And it was a martial art, which makes no one. They don't tease you. So I was lucky in that sense.
Right.
So being able, I think everyone should know martial art, in the sense, I think that fosters. I don't know any bully who did martial art. There might be, of course, but you don't need to.
Right.
Because you feel confident in yourself and no one touches you. So it's very convenient. And having a normal, decent look, you also are accepted by everyone, which is not always great. You don't appreciate it enough that you're lucky, because that's luck. And then choices you make or others do for you, you grow up. But all that helps you during your life.
I can relate to that, because I think growing up in a situation where my immediate household, family, whatever, certainly let me believe, like, you can be anything you want to be. But certainly society was not thinking that way, right? Oh, you're going to end up being a drug dealer, you're going to go to jail, that the sort of the chances were, if you just looked at it statistically. And so there was always this maybe burning desire to prove to myself that, not so much that I believed what anyone else said, but just, I could be anything. And it's all your environment, your circumstances. It has nothing to do with,
I don't think my parents didn't believe I would be anything. And I think partly to prove them wrong. And I had friends who were good and bad, some good at school. I had some who didn't become 20 years old for different reasons, who also ended up on the wrong side of the law. So I think it was mainly to prove for everyone else that I was good enough. And that, I think, is not a good... It's a driver in your life, but it also makes you not appreciate what you have and being happy for things.
So that's another one that and this is something I wouldn't say I struggle with, but I think a lot about, because to get to this point, whether it's through drive or ambition, and we were just talking about the cost of success, there's really not a lot of balance.
No.
It's just hard, right? There's only so many hours in a day, and the more you're able to take on, you just do. And if you're like me, and I know you are, it just means you sacrifice sleep, you sacrifice your health a little bit, just so you can take care of your family and your job, and then you come last. So what do you think? And these days, I would say you hear a lot about balance, which, I get it. It's important. I just think there's not a lot of it, right?
No.
I mean, if you're, it's just hard to do all of those things really well. And I don't care if this is sports, business. So what do you think ambitious people get wrong about balance? Like, you can't do what you did and balance everything. I think it's impossible.
It's very, very hard. I mean, right now, if you have Eileen Gu, I don't know if I pronounce her name right, the Chinese-American
from
skier.
Stanford. Yes.
Who is doing, she seems to have it figured out. I don't. Because balancing is super hard. And accepting yourself for what you are and not trying. I think the driver that makes some people successful is also a negative force. And try to balance that and having enjoying life and your near and dear ones and still being successful. If you can figure that one out, you're a winner in life, not competition-wise. But and that's you asked before. I think I was a bit negative and hard to myself and my surroundings, or believing in my head said, of course, no, I don't care about money, and I don't need a Porsche to be happy. But in my heart, I still thought so. And it took some life experience going wrong in my life to realize what really, really was important. And I think I know today, but it's still hard. You don't live like that all the time. So I think appreciating life, friends, family, that is the most... if you don't do that, you pay the ultimate price. I think that is happiness, nothing else.
Yeah. I remember a doctor, I'll be 52 in a few months. And this doctor, who's a close friend of mine, just telling me, like, you can't burn the candle at both ends. Like, it doesn't work. And I only knew sacrifice and forget about balance. Like, there was always a greater good that was worth, paying that price. And when you look at people working 3-4 jobs before you, of course, it doesn't seem like a big thing. But something I've now tried to do is just cut out more of the unnecessary, things in life, and actually be what I feel like is selfish. And I think you are like that too, a little bit, where you are focusing on yourself, trying to get your health right, trying to make sure that you're in the right place, and then you can be there for your daughter and for work, and you can't just run wild and like that just doesn't work. And that's something I've learned, and I think you've been leading the way, at least for me, on that. So
I think you've been a good role model as well over the years, and taking care of your family in a good way instead of just running for the money. And I think seriously, I think that's been very, very inspiring for me. And I think it doesn't have to be black or white, but you have to know your priorities. And I've burned, as you said as well. I've been doing the night thing until 4 in the morning, going to work at 7 and pretending that everything is fine, and done a decent job and commuting the distance. And I've been commuting all my life, and 80-90% of the time I had 2 jobs. from the company, same company, but still doing in 2 geographical locations. And you think you can do that and taking care of your family and having fun at the same time. And you think you have to do it, and you have to. It's not that I think I'm Superman or anyone else thinks anyone is, but it's just doing it and not thinking, because in the end you burn your candle, and that's not good. And you just have to not being oversensitive about things, because we are having a luxury life compared to so many people in the world. But take care of it. I think commuting or working 10 hours or 12 hours or 14 hours is not the end of the world. You just don't have to feel stressed about it. You have to appreciate it and be thankful for you have the opportunity to do something fun, and you have a fantastic family, you have good friends, and enjoy that. And then working a lot or traveling is not a big problem.
Well, and now I think that's more front of mind, because you have, my mom has been, a mental health professional for, I don't know, almost 40 plus years. And so I think now we're appreciating more the importance of mental health and physical health, and not just, grinding that sort of like crazy culture, which is good. I don't know if it truly hits like balance, but certainly, it's probably a better way to do it, and not burn out and stay fresh and be able to adjust to the times. But, I think I appreciate you joining me today, and I learned a lot, sort of being a little bit more introspective, but just thinking about our, last, like I said, almost 20 years. And just sitting here today, I feel like careers are not just kind of this like perfect straight line. And I don't get the feeling that you planned it perfectly to be this way, and you were opportunistic, you appreciated, took advantage, created these opportunities, and I think that's amazing. And what you've done to overcome adversity over and over and over again, and even the some things that no one should ever have to deal with, I think a lot of people can learn from and be inspired by, and we should definitely sit down and do this again, at some point. But, thank you for sharing the journey, and thank you for, being here in the room.
Thank you. And I mean, you're part of the reason why I'm back in Japan working again. A couple of years ago when I left H&M, I was doing some consulting in Europe, and then I figured out, where do I want to spend the next couple of years? And partly I was thinking of all my experiences. I worked in 14 different countries all over the world, and you're a big part of why I enjoyed my time in Japan so much. So coming back to Japan, I thought was maybe the best way to finish a career and a life. I was thinking, I wasn't thinking career-wise, I was thinking, where do I want to spend the next couple of years in my life? And I was thinking back to US or Europe or Asia, and I think the most enjoyable time of my life I had in Tokyo, in Japan. So, and that was partly thanks to you, of course. And so I said, let's go back. And partly thanks to you, and now I'm doing something else. I enjoy my life here very, very much. And thank you.
I enjoy it. Enjoy being back and forth with New York and Tokyo primarily, so we'll have more chance to see each other and continue the conversation. I want to hear what's next, as you move forward. We'll have to continue the conversation.
Yeah, from the cold to the shine, I made it my own. Never asked for a hand, just a place I could own. New York state of mind. New York state of mind. Now it's all looking right. Now it's all looking right. New York state of mind. I put that on me. low key. We chasing that dream.